Instead, the Winnipeg Jets have acquired Pierre-Luc Dubois and a third-round pick in 2022. And Mike, I forgot to put my freaking computer on Do Not Disturb. God damn it. Anyway, the Jets acquired Dubois and a third in 2022 in exchange for Jack Roslovic, who signs a 2-year deal with the Blue Jackets, and the big piece, Patrik Laine, goes the other way, guys. Now, I see this trade two different ways, and we can get to the second part of it in a second. But first, is this not, Daniel, the definition of a trade that it is going to take a few years just to see who won it?
Yeah, I think so. What they kind of said were the Jets kind of really took a bit of a loss here in terms of what they gave up because Roslovic's already a known commodity along with Patrik Laine. But, they were, I think it was James Myrtle who said, like, at this point, they already had their hands tied. They had to do something. They had to get this over with. And I think that for the return, it's pretty good. But in terms of how these two players are going to adjust to new environments, it's like what you said. It's a wait and see. We'll see how Laine kind of goes with John Tortorella in that new system, if he could be that guy. I know they have Max Domi, so they'll try to figure out some chemistry there. And then with PierreLuc Dubois, kind of in a way goes to a place he would want to go more preferably. Like, it's not a big city, but it is Canada. And he can play with some pretty skilled guys. I think that he's not going to be asked to be that guy anymore, but he could still develop into like a 1-2 punch. And I like that Paul Stastny is there to kind of give some security at the center position if Dubois moved to the left side.
You know what? Looking at really fit, we can talk about in a second. Alex, what I think about a lot in this trade is this could be a disaster for both teams in a couple of years because it's really Patrik Laine wanted to play with an elite centerman. And right now it is an unknown in Domi and Texier. And
is Domi even a center?
He is, yes.
Okay.
For them, but he was not getting a ton of ice time. Well, he's going to have to now.
Right.
But the contracts here, in a few years, this is legitimately a trade that even looking at Dubois, looking at how he can sign an extension in Winnipeg starting in the summer. This trade is not going to go away for a while now. We always look at like Drew and Sergachev. We can be like, you can keep your eye on that for a couple years, but this trade, you can just kind of say, but at the front of it, you see a defenseman, you see a skilled forward. But this is seriously, we can look at this season however we want, but until these guys sign new deals with their teams.
Yeah. You're right. I think strictly on paper, if you want to look at it that way, I think you can make the argument that the Columbus Blue Jackets came out on top because I think at the moment they might have gotten the better player plus another player, right? They got Laine, who can score 30 goals in his sleep, plus Jack Roslovic. To be honest, I don't know much about Jack Roslovic, but he's an NHL player, right? Like, I don't necessarily think that's really a question. But I think the tides can really turn more for Winnipeg than they can for Columbus, because at the moment, what does Columbus have that Patrik Laine was looking for? Like, the one reason he wanted the move was because he wanted to play with a center, like you were saying. Like, who's he been playing with? Stastny he played with Kevin Hayes. That didn't really work.
Andrew Cobb.
And Paul Maurice, for whatever reason, doesn't like to play him consistently with Mark Scheifele. In my opinion, he should. That's a different story. He goes to Columbus now, and he's playing with who? Max Domi or Alex Texier?
Yeah, it's probably going to be Max Domi, but...
sorry, I don't know if there's much of a... there's an improvement. I think Max Domi could be a better player or better fit for him than maybe other centers he's played with, but it's nowhere near the level of Mark Scheifele.
Mm-hmm. Something that... Sorry, were you about to say something?
No, I just was going to look at the Winnipeg side, but I can do it after.
No, go ahead. We can spend time on this.
With Dubois in Winnipeg, I think one of the reasons he wanted to leave obviously was to be in a bigger market, and I think he's done that. And I think when the trade happened, there was a lot on Twitter saying, "Well, he just went to the Ohio of Canada," but it's Canada. How many times have we talked about that on this podcast? Where when you move from like Columbus to Winnipeg, it's a bigger market no matter what. Like,
watch a Jets game in the playoffs and you understand why it's a good market for a player to play in.
Right. Like I think because the city, I guess, is small compared to the other cities in Canada, there's the misconception that it's not a bigger market, but they care about hockey. Mm-hmm. There is a bigger fan base in Winnipeg that cares about hockey.
You can put it as the market size itself is small, but the fan dedication is hardcore. If we're
right,
NHL
exactly.
Expansion.
And I think for Dubois, he leaves Columbus, where was he playing with the best players? Not necessarily. He goes to Winnipeg and he's going to play, let's say he plays on the second line. So it's Ehlers, Dubois, and let's even say Paul Stastny if Dubois is playing the wing when he arrives. But after this year, let's say Paul Stastny leaves and they think Cole Perfetti is ready. You're looking at the top six of Connor Scheifele, Wheeler, Ehlers, Dubois, Perfetti. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a really good top six. And one thing that I think really slipped under everybody's eyes is that, do you know whose father is the coach in the AHL for the Manitoba Moose?
Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Mm-hmm. If we're looking at connections too, Jack Roslovic is a Columbus native. Apparently, Jarmo Kekalainen was talking to the media for the trade and saying that apparently anytime the Jets have had a conversation with Columbus, they've asked about Jack Roslovic. So if we go on the assumption that, Columbus and Laine can have a long-term relationship here, Daniel, do they need the centerman? Yeah, but if there are, let's say Roslovic turns himself into a legit top six center, he'll have a top six opportunity in Columbus. They do need goal scoring. They always have, and they do in this trade acquire the guy who I think I predicted him to win the Richard this year, and honestly, every year it was a bet to get 40, 50 goals.
I think with what Columbus has, and like Alex said, what they have this year, because we don't know how the contract negotiations are going to go, that they have that prolific scorer, something to really replace arguably Artemi Panarin's production this season, because with what the system they had going this year, I didn't think that they were going to be able to kind of sustain things with Pierre-Luc Dubois, situation. And the fact that they were able to get Jack Roslovic as well, it's just, I think it's going to work well for them in a way that he did sign his extension. And, this is a guy that, two things, he's hungry, he wants to play, he's going to get top 6 minutes. But at the same time, I know it's going to take a bit of time with quarantine and him missing all of training camp. But with what Columbus is kind of given, I'm kind of apprehensive aside from the goal scoring kind of thing, because Laine is not known as a premier back checker. Yeah, and we have the Tortorella situation going right now. I know we're going to comment on that further, but it's just another thing for Columbus where it's the same theme I feel like I've always been seeing with them is, you had the Rick Nash, and that guy had an iron will of patience with that team before he got traded. And then you had other guys coming in, Jeff Carter, you had Marian Gaborik, you had like Panarin, Duchesne, all these guys that, you kind of come in and try to commit some long-term plan to them, but they never seem to stay no matter what. Even when Columbus either, gets these trades or they get those draft picks that eventually develop like Dubois. And it just is something I see now where what can you do when these guys don't want to stay? Or, you could give these extensions to guys like like Savard or, Atkinson or Bjorkstrand, but you're not able to keep the top talent around. And it just makes me think about their defense right now, where what are you selling to these guys?
I don't know. But, I mean, right now, at least they have him. Like, for now, he is an RFA at the end of the season. But right now, they do have him. And you know what? Dubois, in his interview with Ron McLean on Hockey Night in Canada, I want to get to some of the comments made from everyone involved. Cheveldayoff, Jets GM, Kekalainen GM in Columbus, and then the head coaches respectively here. First, I want to talk about Tortorella, because the clips I saw, he was so happy to have Laine, maybe because he finally realizes he has some offensive help. But I really, really want to talk about Paul Maurice, because there's a big parallel here. And it feels like so much has happened to their last show, because Dubois had his last game.
Yeah.
And it ended terribly. He had 3 minutes and
disaster.
3 minutes and 55 ice time. Didn't play in the second or third period after probably the worst shift I have ever seen in hockey. Just no effort, lazy. I mean, I'm sure he's probably embarrassed on that shift, or if he's not, he will be in a couple of years. It looks like both parties naturally, Columbus are happy to have Laine. Why wouldn't they be? Cheveldayoff was like, we're proud of Patrik. Paul Maurice was talking so much about the professionalism of Laine to start the year. And it was kind of the exact opposite of what happened with Dubois. His Laine came in. He only got to play one game and he got hurt, but it was a fantastic game. I think he had a pair of goals and 3 points, including the OT winner. And then Columbus had nothing to say about Pierre-Luc. And I don't think I blame them. And I think this is a time when I can ask both of you. And I'm going to ask Alex here, because you and I were talking on text about this.
Mm-hmm.
What did you make of not just Pierre-Luc Dubois' effort in that last shift, his last game in Columbus, but towards his decision to say, you know what, you're sitting for the rest of this game?
On that specific game, I think it was it was very fair that John Tortorella benched him. I guess when I first heard that he was benched, no one really knew what had happened. It wasn't until the clip actually came out. Yes. And after I saw the clip, I'm like, yeah, this is totally fair. Like, that's unacceptable. I don't think there's any coach out there who wouldn't have done the same thing. The issue I had previous that specific game, though, is the whole mentality with John Tortorella saying, well, I only want to play the players that want to be here, which is fine, but he's your star, right? He is your star. Who else on that team is a star? Other, like, forward wise, because I know, you got Jones and Werenski as well, but forward wise,
Domi,
Cam Atkinson. I don't know.
They aren't shiny players, but Domi is a star, and I don't think we talk about how good
in your heart, Adam.
But Domi is a star. I don't think can't deny Domi is a star player.
Yeah, but so to go out, but the thing is, he's new, right? He's new, and he got benched. Didn't play the same game that Dubois, the game before the Dubois benching. There was a long period of time where both Dubois and Domi didn't play.
Like last 5 minutes of the game, they didn't see the ice.
Right. So the thing with that is, well, Panarin and Bobrovsky didn't want to be there either. And I understand they're a different caliber of star, but when you have a team like Columbus, where it really isn't, you don't have many stars. You don't. It's just the reality at the moment up front. You're going to tell me you're not going to play them because they don't want to be there. Now you're going to take a stand. Kekalainen took an absolute risk in bringing in Matt Duchene and Ryan Dzingel. And I don't remember who he brought defense. Adam McQuaid. Mm-hmm. He took a risk bringing all those guys in there to make that run, which they did beat Tampa. But he didn't have to do that. Right? So that's the mentality I don't agree with. that you don't play your guys because they don't want to be there.
Daniel.
Yeah, it is so odd that other than Dubois, the amount of times we've actually talked about Columbus the last few months, because they were that team for so long for me that I kind of felt like, yeah, they got a good player. They'll see what they can do with it. But they always have those guys that they kind of end up re-signing, like a Cam Atkinson. And the way they've kind of handled things where, like what Alex said, they don't have a lot of top-end talent, and then they don't play Dubois where even in the NBA, if a player, like I'm gonna use the NBA for another example, even if a guy says he wants a trade request, like James Harden still played. And I think arguably that was a bigger case. But with Pierre-Luc Dubois, it's just it is an odd thing because coming out of the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles, he was, touted as the next Jonathan Taves in terms of his two-way play, in terms of his leadership and demeanor as well. And that is something that they spoke highly of when he was drafted. And then for this thing to kind of fall out, it's just, I don't know which side was wrong, which side was right. We don't know what was kind of said, in the locker room, what was said by upper management. But like, I agree. Like, if you were going to do something about this, if Columbus was thinking, let's try to remedy this, because there's been a lot of trade rumors that have been remedied within the organization, I'd figure you'd play him. But again, he did play, and then that last shift, I don't know what happened there, because that was horrible to watch. But I guess I would like to know maybe eventually what more of the details were, and knowing hockey, I'm not sure we are going to know it.
Yeah.
There's definitely something we're missing, and that was something Adam and I were talking about a couple nights ago. Like, there's something we're missing here that we don't know.
I wonder that, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I haven't watched the Columbus game this season. I'm not even gonna claim that I have. Just I wonder, because Panarin and Bobrovsky, it appeared they never stopped playing. You know what I mean? But there was the one incident that Bobrovsky had gotten pulled and he had left the bench. He got suspended internally for it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the start of the season, and I believe what we imagine that Pierre-Luc Dubois has never on the ice been higher after the playoffs. And I wonder in those early games that there was not nearly as bad as that last shift against the Lightning, but if there was that missing from Pierre-Luc Dubois, I wonder if that is why Torts made the decision. Mm-hmm. Again, I can't say if that was it, but I'm just trying to play devil's advocate there.
Yeah. It's a possibility.
Yeah. And I mean, credit to Columbus, because they came out after that game and they beat Tampa yesterday.
Yeah.
They lost in overtime in the game itself, but pulling out 3 of 4 points against the Stanley Cup champions, a team that they have been, by the way, battling with the past couple of years. Incredible.
Which is odd. I don't know. It's just odd to me.
Yeah.
That's a rivalry to think about in hockey.